In today's video, we're going to be reviewing the 2018 C63s. For comparison here, we got a 2017 C43 AMG. Now, it's not going to be a head-to-head video, but I wanted to pose the question because these cars have come a long way now. A really good everyday driver car, all-wheel drive, twin turbo, putting out 360 horsepower, and the facelifted model is putting out 390 horsepower. So the gap has been closed in terms of horsepower compared to what the original C63 used to put out, which was about 450 horsepower. So begs the question, is this enough AMG or is this too much AMG? Sound. So let's talk about the speed aspect of this car. Puts out about 503 horsepower from a 4-liter twin turbo engine. Now most German manufacturers are now going to the turbocharged engines versus the naturally aspirated. I don't think it's a bad thing because you still got the crazy sound. So like I said in the intro, it begs to ask the question, is C63 too much AMG versus the C43? Now, in my opinion, yes and no. Yes, from the aspect that if you've driven a lot of cars, fast cars that is, C63 feels normal. But say if you've never driven a fast car and a C63 is your first car, it's a really big handful and it's a lot of car to handle. I feel like first-time drivers will probably end up in a YouTube crash compilation. I mean, it's nothing to worry about because there's computers saving you left and right. But if you dare to take off all the assists, if you're crazy enough, you better be ready because you gotta be fully alert. Yeah, it'll get squirrely on you. Right, so 4-liter twin turbo V8 making 503 horsepower. Now, because this is the S package, it is making a little bit more power compared to the baseline, which is 469. Now, is it really needed? I mean, that's up to you. Do you really need a lot of horsepower? Because really, a C43, like I was saying before, is a lot of horsepower for every day. Car's like on another level. So the transmission in this is a multi-clutch transmission. Now, from what I understand is that it's a regular automatic transmission, but it doesn't have a torque converter. Instead, it has a wet clutch, and that means you can launch it much harder than you can an automatic. Now the handling in this is very good. Now comparing to the E63 that I was talking about earlier, it's much more nimbler than that car. There's a lot less weight shifting around, and I feel that Mercedes, above all other brands, really has a dynamic change in the drive select. That's the different mode selects that you can do, which is the Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus. So right now we're in Sport Plus. The transmission is a lot more sharper in the shifts, whereas if I were to put it into Comfort like I am now, everything quiets down, the shifts are a lot more smoother, and It's a night and day difference, really. It's just like a normal C-Class, really. Now the sounds in this car, I mean, this goes without saying. I mean, I'm convinced that AMG has a sound engineer who has to say, yes, this car sounds AMG. It's music. And the sound is so intoxicating that it really pushes you to keep driving the car faster and faster. You just don't want to stop. But actually, when you do stop, at least you get to hear the downshifts. Listen. Come on. Also, for the sound, I feel like there's no replacement for the V8 sound. I'm not salty about V6 turbocharged cars. I love the V6, but there's something about this V8 sound that I hope stays synonymous with AMG for a long time to come. The gunshot pops will literally pop your ears out. We put an E63 and the C63 doing a rev battle in a confined space, and I couldn't hear it right after. So let's talk about the styling of this car. Now, the only gripe I have with this car is the rear end. I feel it looks really weird. I think that's because the S-Class was the first to go through the generation change, and the S-Class and this car have a similar back end. Now, the S-Class has a much longer body, and I feel like it suits that car, especially around the roof line. If you look at it, it kind of blends in really seamlessly. If you look at the roof line with this, it kind of has like a little hump. If you kind of look at it, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I think that's to preserve the headroom for the rear passengers. The coupe knocked it out of the park all around. In my opinion, it looks great, but again, looks are subjective. You might like it, you might hate it. So I love this design aspect of the AMG cars. I call it the nostril of the hood. It's really cool to look at when you're driving the car. Also, you get a glimpse there of the heads-up display, which is also pretty cool. You can see the revs go up with the speed and what gear you're in. Now, the interior on this car is really nice. I feel like they did a really good job. Even though it's a performance model, they've still somewhat kept it classy. They kept it Mercedes, and it looks really good. I tend to not like wood grains, but in this car, it really feels a part of the design. What I mean by that is, remember in the old days, like they used to put that plastic wood pieces all around, and it was just kind of there to be like, oh, this is the premium model here. Whereas this actually feels a part of the design, and it kind of gives it like a warm vibe in here. The seats are absolutely great, super comfortable, and give you a lot of support when you're in cornering, hard cornering. And I mean, you can go a long distance with this car, no problem. I do it every day. Now, as a side note, there's a couple of different comfort features that I could talk about here. Mainly one is that this car actually has an autopilot system. I mean, you do have to keep touching your hands on the wheel. I would demonstrate that to you guys, but I'm just not comfortable with driving autopilot mode. I don't trust it yet. The experience driving this car is just all smiles. I haven't stopped smiling since I started driving this car. It's crazy. Now I completely understand that episode of Top Gear where they compared the C63, the M3, and the RS4, and Jeremy Clarkson gave the AMG such praise, even though that the M3 kind of beat it in a lot of different categories. Now I completely understand what he meant. I mean, there's something about that engine. It's like the sounds it makes and the way it delivers the power. It's, I don't know, you can't help but not smile. And I can definitely envision myself owning this car, and I can't say that about a lot of different cars. A lot of different cars you can just drive and say, yeah, I mean, it was a cool car. But this car, I see myself, like, I actually envision going to get groceries and doing different things, errands and stuff like that. Maybe taking it on a track or something like that. It checks off a lot of boxes, is what I'm trying to say. Definitely, if you're in the market for an M or RS, definitely go try an AMG. You have to experience one. It's a game changer. All right, so let's round it up. We got a 500 horsepower rear-wheel drive routing machine. It's a little bit more to handle than a C43, but not as much as a E63 if you're really after horsepower. It's got a really quick shifting transmission and better drive select modes than most other cars. The sounds are godly, and personally I find that the rear end looks a little bit weird with the proportions. And if you haven't experienced an AMG and you're in the market, or it's a plausibility of buying it as your next car, definitely go try one.